Hello, everyone. We are doing it a bit differently today. That I am joined by Ali Harris, and we are pre-recording this. So I'm saying hello to you, whether you're watching or listening. There is a reason that we're pre-recording, and it's mainly so that I don't blurt too much stuff out, because as you know, people that watch me, I do that. And today is a session that I really have wanted to do for a while with Ali. Ali is a psychotherapist, and I think she's amazing. And I wanted to get her in today to talk all things therapy. It's something that's close to my heart and has been very powerful for me the last few years. So I wanted to share that with you guys today and just chat a bit more about it. And for anyone that hasn't done any therapy or counselling, just to give you a little insight into that. So Ali, I know we do have a relationship. You are my therapist, but we have agreed on this, and I'm happy to share some of my story, but as well, I'd love it if you could just first of all introduce yourself, tell us a bit about you within the parameters of what you feel comfortable sharing as a therapist.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm happy to talk about anything about me and what I do, obviously, because we have an existing relationship. As always, with any therapist, you, the client, can say whatever you want to whoever you want, including me, about our work. I can't say anything about you and our work. And that's another reason why we decided to do it this way, just in case we go, oh, that's overlanded. So to be clear, I don't talk about my clients. I don't talk about their material, and that's not what we're here for today. Laura can talk about whatever she wants, but when Laura offered me the opportunity to come here and chat about therapy, I'm always up for that. I can be terribly boring about therapy, so feel free to fast forward me if it gets a bit much. So I'm a counsellor, psychotherapist. I'm a mum, and most of the people I work with are mums. We're a harried bunch, and we always put everyone's needs before our own, or we tend to. And then we wonder why we start coming apart at the seams. That's certainly something I did. Certainly, I think it doesn't matter how rich or poor you are. I think that tends to be what most mums do. It's motherhood is a leveling field, I think. No matter how many resources you've got, emotional resources can be hard to come by. And I guess that's what counselling is for, kind of noticing, how did I get to this stage? What led me here? What experiences, relationships, beliefs, circumstances got me here? And then how do I get myself somewhere else? But of course, if you want to go somewhere else, you need to know where you want to go. So that's the work of therapy, really.
Yes. And do I, as I'm prone to doing, skipping around here, just as stuff comes into my head, even though you work a lot with mums, do you see that as women generally, or those that identify as women, that we are putting ourselves at the back of the pile or at the bottom of the pile, and that there's so much?
I would say so. I think women generally, and anyone who identifies as a woman or is treated as a woman and falls into that sort of prejudicial block, we tend to be socialized. We tend to smile more. We tend to make everything okay. We want to make everything fine for everyone else, and we get approval for doing that. That's why you get guys going, "Smile, love, might never happen." But that's it. Is we're not even allowed to look serious. We're not allowed to be serious. If we're cross, then we're bitchy. It's that whole thing about what a straight white man would get away with and be admired for, we are told off for. And so we have to be of use. And when we're young, being of use, I guess, is looking pretty, looking like men want us to look, being available for the things they want us to be available for. Mm-hmm. Then when we sort of have kids, then we're useful because we do all the unpaid emotional and physical labor of raising children, thinking about things. Even if you're working, you're probably doing most of the housework and all the emotional labor, dental appointments, party gifts, vaccinations, everything, that's all going on. And then when the kids are older and we're no longer considered to be attractive, when we're sort of perimenopausal and losing our shit, essentially, because no one supports us, then at that point, the pressure is on to look as young as possible, which is a losing battle, and sort of enter into the sort of 50s and 60s of this cliche of the woman who's of use, the women who volunteer, the women who lose all of their, cachet as something to look at and become somebody, and they can't have children anymore. So then we're people who babysit, who volunteer, who help, And again, often unpaid or paid badly. And so I think we are socialized. Anyone who is female or identifies as female or is identifiable as female is generally going to be pressed into service, which is a sad thing to say in this day and age, but it's true. And that has emotional consequences. And that's not to say patriarchy hurts everybody. It's not like it's great for guys either, but we're not talking about the guys today, so we can shove that.
Yeah.
But I just want to say it's not great for men either. But yeah, I would say women definitely are still suffering from these cliches.
And then is that burnout, I guess, or that overwhelm often a reason why people come to you? I mean, what are the sort of reasons, or presenting reasons? Might not be the actual, as I discovered, the deep down.
It's not that. It's interesting because people, they often want to know, what do you specialize in? And that's really hard to say, because a lot of people come and they will say what they think is the reason, because how would they know any different, right? Of course they do. They say, oh, I have really bad anxiety, I'm an anxious person. Okay, work with that. Or I'm depressed. Okay, fine. Bereavement is one where you do know, like, oh, I'm coming because of bereavement. But even under that, you will find, why is this bereavement affecting you the way that it is? So anxiety, depression, and even sometimes with bereavement, all the things that would bring people, they usually come at breaking point. No one comes and goes, oh, I haven't been feeling great, I think I maybe get a bit of spot of counselling before it gets worse. We all wait until it's really bad and you've got no choice. And then you present with these symptoms, anxiety, depression. But usually on closer inspection, what you find under there is something that's been going on for ages, ideas, experiences that we've internalized about ourselves, about the people. And as you kind of unpick it, it's a bit like, even if one of your kids have like chewing gum in their hair or something, it's like that. If you leave it or not, and you don't brush it out, it gets bigger, the mat gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And obviously the feelings, you can't just cut that shit out. You actually have to sit there and tease it all apart. And that is often the work of counselling, is encouraging people to say how they really feel rather than flee from it, to think about what that means instead of push it to the back of the mind. Because the more you do that, the worse it gets, essentially. So we're trying to free up and explore things that have been shoved to the back of the mind closet sometimes.
So I guess it comes out in some way, somehow. It's either the body or, like you say, the anxiety or the depression, but it's because I'm pretty sure my initial and I'm fine sharing this was because we were in COVID lockdown, and then I suddenly was spending time thinking about my youngest, who had been sick for 2 and a bit years, and then suddenly that hit me, and I was had been seeing ambulances and getting upset, and that was one of the big reasons that brought me to you, because I was thinking, well, there's something here, something feels off. But then, as you say, there's often more stuff going on that you're not aware of, and we're often so busy, as if we have time. For me, I'm just like, even just having that 50 minutes with you is 50 minutes I'm not generally dedicating to myself in the week otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that was one of the many problems with COVID, is that for people who were stuck indoors with few or zero diversions, that's what happens. Is it's easy, isn't it, to keep busy, to focus on stuff, to keep running from whatever is bothering you. I think that's why like 4 a.m. is a really rubbish time. People wake up, like panicked, full of dread, is because there's nothing happening at 4 a.m. You wake up and all your fears crowd in. And I think that's what happened to a lot of people in COVID, except for obviously key workers and people who were super busy. We were just really busy. I was super busy over COVID. But people who had nothing to do, there's only so much banana bread you can bake. There's only so many puppies you can buy and watch destroy hats before stuff starts creeping in. And I think that's it, in the quiet moments. That's where it gets you. All the feelings you've been putting down, all the realities you've been avoiding. It's sort of like, I guess I say it a lot, it's like the emotional equivalent of people who are scared of their bills. You've got money problems, so the bill comes, it's there, but you put it in a drawer. And then another one comes, and before you know it, you actually have like an entire chest of drawers full of bills. And the point at which I tend to meet people is when the bills are spilling out onto the floor, and they're kind of hip deep now in the house in bills. And that's why people come. They come at this point of crisis where it's been going on often for years and years, and they say, okay, so you can make me better in like what, 6 to 8 sessions? And I'm like,
I think I did. I said, what book can I read?
And I wish it was that simple. I would it's not like we're all counsellors are sitting here going, we have the secrets, we're going to withhold them and just dispense. No, it's not like that at all. If you imagine like a warehouse filled with unpaid bills, that's what a lot of people bring, and they don't know they're bringing it, and they say, well, where do I start? And I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter. We've got to file every one of these.
Yeah.
We've got to open them, we've got to read them, we've got to deal with them, we've got to file them, and all the time we're doing that, more stuff is coming in. Life keeps going, and so it's almost establishing a bit of a filing system that goes, why have we let this build up? Let's deal with this. What do these all mean, and how do you want to deal with them going forward? Because ideally it is a therapist's job to eventually make themselves redundant. I don't want to be anyone's like life guru or whatever. Like, you should be able, everyone should be able to live without their therapist. And so you don't want to set up, people worry, I think, about setting up a dependence. But a certain amount of dependence is important initially, to kind of think, I have someone I can depend on, especially for those women who have got a lot of people depending on them, whether they're your children or friends, or you've got any kind of dependent. We all need someone to depend on. Counsellors have supervisors who are more qualified, more experienced counsellors who like take care of us. So it's not like we're immune. We all need someone or a set of someone's to depend on. And so, yeah, we all need somebody. And then once you depend on something, think about, if you have kids, your babies depend on you, that's fine. And the idea is that once they've sort of moved to the point where they can do stuff for themselves, like you don't see many 21-year-olds still hanging off a boob and asking someone to wipe their bottom, like hopefully not, where there's not like a medical problem. Obviously that's different, don't want to trivialize that, but generally people learn. And when dependence comes first, you fall apart a bit, you find somewhere safe and someone safe to depend on, and then hopefully what they're supposed to do is kind of support you to empower yourself, whatever that looks like for you. And yeah, absolutely. So part of the process is working out how much is enough, and working out when you feel like you can kind of do it alone, which is the goal, right? It's the ultimate goal. The stupid business model is where you what I should be doing is trying to make myself indispensable, but that's not how this works. That's not how it works.
No. And I think, I know I've certainly uttered the words along the lines of, everyone else is managing fine, why? And I think, often you're looking at other people and thinking, well, they've got it under control, why are they not losing their shit? Or why are they, we have such high expectations, and I think maybe there is still a stigma around needing to get a bit of, well, I certainly felt that in the beginning. Now as well, like even today, I was thinking, this is going to go out and quite a lot of people are going to see this. But actually I thought, well, maybe I've come on in the journey a bit because I care less about that. I'm more, and I feel that I'm further on in the journey. And if one person's watching this and then they come and contact you or someone else and get some support, because I'm like, I think everyone should have therapy.
Well, yeah, I think it is useful. I mean, I've often said, there was a point a few years ago when I was thinking, do I want to still work as a therapist? And someone said, but if you don't, what was the point of all those years? Because I trained for 10 years and I had to be in therapy. But actually, even if I couldn't work anymore as a therapist for whatever reason, I would not regret those years. That was 10 years, 10 years in therapy. But honestly, it was worth it. While I was doing it, I was super resentful and hated it. I really hated it at times. Sometimes it was good.
You're honest.
10 years is a long time. Like, you shouldn't generally need to be in therapy 10 years. I had to be in there. But I mean, it was useful. That's the thing. And I'm glad I don't have to do it anymore, if I'm totally honest. Just because it is work. It's not just a friendly chat. That doesn't mean it can't be funny, like we laugh, right? Like it can be fun. But ultimately, it is work. It is difficult. And if you've ever sat with somebody, you've got a friend who you think you kind of wish would go to therapy.
Yeah.
Why do you wish that? Because when they unload on you, when they unleash, they need to. And it's good of you to do that. But it's hard, right? And if you're not used to it, if you don't have the internal space for it, then it kind of drains you and it leaves you kind of, ugh. And that's why, there's the boundary of therapy to say, this is how often it is, this is how we work for this long. And that's why, hopefully, so one thing I would say, if you're ever going to go for therapy, my advice, my opinion, feel free to disagree, ask a therapist how much personal therapy they've had. Because I'm always kind of shocked and horrified when I meet qualified therapists who haven't had therapy, because I don't know, that seems quite important, to know yourself,
Yeah.
to have sorted out as much of your own shit as possible. I'm not saying I'm some sort of amazing, you know, awakened being, but I know myself pretty
Yeah.
well. And people, you know, that's the thing, clients aren't always, that's the thing, if you go to therapy, it's quite okay. In fact, it's expected to use that space however you want. People can be quite shitty with me, and that's fine. I don't hold it against them. They can lose it with me, they can shout at me, they can sit there like, and that's fine. They should be able to do that. But it's, you need to be able to deal with other people however they want to show up. And sometimes that's really challenging, and we owe it to people to kind of allow them. So someone that hasn't had a lot of personal therapy, I would be concerned about their capacity to hold me. That's my main thing. And also you have to like them. Make sure you like them. So like if you're looking at me now and the way that I talk annoys you, thinking about getting therapy and the way that I talk annoys you, or you don't like the, you know, the way I am, don't work with me. You need to work with somebody you like. The relationship does, I think studies show 75% of the heavy lifting. That's why I offer everyone a free hour to chat, because I don't want you to part with money and then 5 minutes in go, oh, this woman does my head in. Because I'm not for everyone. No one else. You deserve and need someone who you feel gets you, you like their vibe. You feel like they could be, you know, you could be understood by them.
You've got
to jog on, love, definitely. Just someone else.
And do you think if you start a relationship, because I know of people that have started with other therapists and then got into it and been like, oh, something feels off now, like, would you say, well, that's like okay to move on? Or
sort of depends. I went through this. I had one therapist for 5 years, and I felt that we'd got to the end of her usefulness for me. I felt like I needed to go somewhere really like dark and angry. And she kept going, go on then. And I'm like, I can't. Because every time I said something dark, she would try and lighten it. There was this sense of, you know, so I would say, I feel like a toxic mother. I feel like I'm ruining my children, which is how I felt. And she would say, but they're fine. I'd be like, bitch, how do you know how my children are?
Just let me get this out.
She did a lot of reassurance, and she was very helpful to me for a long time, but I just felt that she wasn't able to deal with this idea. And I think it's true. A lot of mums have a lot of feelings about their children that can be quite dark, and they feel that that makes them a bad person, or that someone reported to social services. You can't be reported to social services for dark thoughts. I mean, it depends. If you actually, one thing to think, I wish I could run away. It's quite another thing, for example, to do it. It's one thing to wish that you could smack a child. It's quite another thing to do it. So it's sort of important. I just felt this therapist, and I spoke to her about it. We spoke about it for a long time. And in the end, I said, I'm going to have to find somebody else. And I did find somebody else. She didn't really deal with that massively well. But yeah, so the new therapist, then we started together. And again, I thought like, oh, I don't know if I trust you. And then she said, is this just what you do? Is this just what you do? Start a relationship and then bail out when things get difficult. So we've had a lot of going back and forth. So for some people, I'm not saying don't leave, but it's easy to leave, to keep leaving, whether it's, you know, relationships, marriages, friendships, therapists. If you find yourself going from therapist to therapist, citing similar reasons every time, this might be a pattern. And so it's worth stopping. It's different if they give you the ick, or you don't like them, or you think that they're not nice to you. But if you're just, you know, find yourself leaving for the same reason and yet always going back to therapy, it might be worth finding one, sticking with one and going, what is going on here? Why do I not want to talk to you? Why do I not want to be with you? So I did this with my therapist. We went back and forth, back and forth. And in the end, I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm staying. I'm staying. She goes, well, maybe you should leave. And I'm like, no, I'm staying. You're stuck with me now. You're stuck with me. I said, because I cannot be bothered to introduce myself to another therapist. I said, you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do. And actually, and it was fine. So I just decided to stay and to use her as much as I could. I didn't necessarily need her to sort of, you know, to be the way I wanted. I had this idea that I wanted this perfect therapist to be a certain way. And she was like, well, do I need to be that way in order for you to use me as you need to? So I decided no. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't move. Some people move, you know, some people leave me, and some people come from someone else to me. So that's what I did, but that doesn't mean that's what other people should do. But I guess what I'm saying is that it's always worth talking. Talk to your therapist before you dump them. Don't just send them. You can just send them a text. Or just not come. You can do that, but really, it doesn't do you any favors in the long run, because then you're just sort of leaving it kind of open. It's like, no one likes being ghosted, like,
No.
but it also is, it's a sense of something that can't be spoken about. And if someone comes to me and says, you're not helping me, or this is boring, or it's not good, let's talk about that. That's a real chat, and it's sort of the capacity to articulate something difficult. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to say, what do you mean? I've worked so hard for you. Leave me. No. If I'm not doing something that's helping you, then we should talk about that. And we should think, well, why is that? What's my contribution? What's your contribution? Is this just a bad fit? Or is this something actually that we've been working towards, this conflict? Is this something we can resolve together, and that will help move you on? So I'm always up for that conversation, but I appreciate it. It's a scary prospect for other people. Yeah. It's not easy.
And I guess that's, yes, it's how the individual is generally in life with, and you know, that's part of it. If they're not confrontational and don't in day-to-day life, then I guess if they've not worked through that as part of the journey, then that's going to be even harder, having those difficult conversations.
Yeah, and it's hard for them to trust, because I mean, also, at the end of the day, therapists are people, but in theory, certainly in my opinion, what's supposed to happen in the therapeutic relationship is different from what normally happens. So I don't know, say there's two people and they're having a bit of an argument. If they're friends and one of them has said, you know, this is how I felt when you said that, now the other friend might just go, well, you shouldn't feel like that, and you should know that I would never do that, and you should know that it's fine, and you should know. They're defensive. But hopefully in a therapeutic relationship, and I say hopefully because we're still people and you hear all kinds of things about what goes on, so there is no guarantee. But someone comes to me and says, I'm really upset because last week the way you spoke to me, or that expression you made, or that thing you said, I felt dismissed. I'm not going to go, well, you shouldn't, or I was just trying to do this. I might explain myself, but my first reaction is, oh wow, okay, so that's awful. Tell me more about how I pissed you off or upset you or hurt you. What did I do? What was it, what I said? Or, you know, how did that happen? And gosh, how awful for you. You've come here to a place that's supposed to be, you know, as safe as a human interaction can be, to help you with your pain, and I've caused you pain. That sucks. Tell me more about it, otherwise I might do it again. Let's hear about how I did that, what I did, and how I can make sure I don't do that again. So we're not used to being met with a kind of openness and curiosity that we actually all need. It's messed up. I don't know why we don't do it.
Yeah. And if people are new to coming into a counselling, a therapy scenario, I mean, it all sounds quite heavy, and I know I felt really nervous when I started. And again, I wanted the quick fix. I'm like, can I be out of here in 6 weeks and just tell me what I need to read after? And what do I need to do to feel, the fix version. What can people expect if they're gonna be in it? You know, if they're gonna get involved and then be in it for the longish haul until they've sort of worked through stuff.
What to expect? Well, I mean, I can say what you can expect with me. We have an initial chat anyway, for, you know, so if we've had that chat and you've asked all your questions and told me what you need me to know, then we pick a time, and ideally we try and stick to it, but there is wiggle room. And then we just chat. The first session, just to help people find a jumping off point, is, I ask people to give me their entire life story in as much or as little detail as they want. So usually that's just a session, but it depends like how long someone's been alive. Sometimes it can take, I think the most I've done is 4 or 5. For somebody who's had a lot go on.
Yeah.
But that's not compulsory. The reason I ask for that is because it helps me get to know the kind of people, the places, the relationships and experiences that have shaped a person, you know, what they've learned, what's been told explicitly, but also what's been implied to them about what men do, what women do, what family is, what they deserve, what safety is, you know, these kinds of things, how, you know, what your family unit was like, what school was like, whether you had friends, whether you were bullied, all of that kind of stuff, who you dated, what you did after school. All of these kind of things are formative. They've made you who they are, and they've sent you messages. And when we're little children, we're like little baby birds, and parents and schools, they kind of put stuff in and we just gulp it down. Whereas in therapy, we have a chance then to kind of go back and assess it constructively and go, do I want this? It's almost like a bit of a Marie Kondo of the mind. So we kind of look at everything you've been given in terms of emotional, physical resources and go, okay, you're given this, but do you like it? Because it doesn't go with any of your stuff. Do you want it? Do you like it? Or are we going to, and you decide. it's a sort of decluttering experience, but it gives me an overview of the emotional landscape to kind of go, that's how we got here. And to sort of start thinking and linking, to sort of make some connections. So I might say, for example, that enables me to then later say to somebody, oh, that thing you said about your boss, your female boss, is reminding me about that confrontation you had with your mum, and also in your first job, or that teacher. And we kind of go, so females in authority seem to bring this out in you, and it seems like you're repeating a pattern here and relating, say, to all these other female authority figures as if they are, say, your mum. And so it's just sort of noticing patterns that you've been maybe living, not you personally, but one in general, and not realizing. And so if you don't know it's happening, if it's out of your conscious awareness, it can basically play merry hell with your life. So what we're trying to do is pull up these awarenesses from unconsciousness into consciousness, and then you're empowered to do something about it. So we start with a life story, but after that, it's just show up and talk about whatever you want. So some people have lists. They've really put a lot of thought into what they want to talk about, and they want to squeeze every last bit out of those 50 minutes, which is fair enough, and you can do that. Some people want to be entertaining. They don't want to repeat themselves. But really the best thing you can do is not plan it, to be honest. To just show up and talk about whatever's on your mind, and trust in your therapist's capacity to kind of pull up the subtext and help you link it together. And then as they're doing that, over time, you learn to do it. And so I always think that when you're done in therapy, one of the signs, there's a few, one of the signs is when you feel like you're telling stuff, but your therapist doesn't need to get involved because you're also explaining. So you're saying, I noticed that I was doing this, I felt like this, and I realized that this was happening, so I did this. And you realize that you're doing your therapy in the presence of your therapist, who's just kind of going, okay. And so you realize that I can do this now. I don't need you. Yeah. And that's it. So they do it with you, and then you get to the point where it's sort of like learning to ride a bike, and then you realize someone's let go of the back, and you're doing it yourself, and you realize and so we just do that. Sometimes people sit in silence for a good portion of time and wait for something to come up. You don't get to do that. Normally, if you go for coffee with someone, silent, there's not many. So you're just sort of allowed to use the space however you want, for as long as you want, until you don't want to anymore.
And is there a minimum that you would, or I know I keep going, what's the maximum of time I should be doing? Should be here for?
Yeah, no. Well,
why is it taking so long?
I never know. That would be my special skill. If I could pick a special skill that was counselling related, it would be meeting someone and knowing exactly how many sessions. Because there's some people I would never say to them. Some people meet them and I think, we could do this a while. And then there's other people who, and they sort of, within 20 sessions, they're like, boom. And I'm like, crikey, how did we manage that? That's impressive. Yeah. And other people, you think, bish, bash, bosh, 12 sessions will be off. And then here I am with them, say maybe, 18 months or 3 or 4 years later. So I don't really know. There isn't a minimum. I mean, you could do one session and decide you don't want to do it and go home. You get to decide. There's a lot of clients who tell me when I'm done. And I'm like, no.
It doesn't work like that.
I know people who've stopped therapy for all kinds of reasons. A lot of people say, it's been a year, I need to stop now. Because they and it's almost like a sense of giving up on themselves. This idea of, if I've been doing this for a year and I'm not better yet, I may as well stop. It's sort of like an attitude, I guess, some people have to weight loss, is that if they start to plateau, they think, I may as well stop. But then what happens? You stop doing all the things that you were doing to take care of yourself. And so you're going to be back in the same position, I guess. I don't know. So there's no minimum and there's no maximum. I guess it's working out why you're there. And if you feel like you've hit a plateau. So a lot of people say, I'm going to end because I feel like I used to have lots of things to talk about and I really needed to be here. And they notice there's a subtle shift that happens where you've kind of, a lot of people are like sort of a big tap and it's like, gosh. And then you get to the point where there's more spaces. And that's actually a sign of, feeling better is a good sign. But it's not necessarily, it can be when you stop. You get to decide how much is enough. But actually that gear shift can just be like, we can go deeper now. Like the immediate urgency is kind of gone. Sort of like you go into the emergency room with like a gushing wound. Like they sew it up and stuff and it stopped bleeding. But are you better now?
Yeah.
And again, but it's not for me to tell people how long they have to hang out, you know. I could have stayed in therapy. I stopped after my 10 years. I could have stayed and I would have been able to use that space. I would have found you can go for the rest of your life and find out stuff. So part of the work is thinking, how much is enough? What am I aiming for? What am I getting? And it can be quite good sometimes to take breaks if you want to, because again, it's, say you took a break and then you felt yourself tanking, you can come back. No one's going to go, Part of self-care is understanding what your needs are and then responding to them. And you might want to go back and do something different. You might want to go and do some body work or some breath work or some yoga therapy or something else. Like sometimes people come and they say, oh, my last therapist was rubbish, I didn't get anywhere. And then as we work together and I say like, oh, it seems like you're making really good progress. It seems like, but it feels like we're building on the work that you did before. And they're like, no, they were rubbish. But actually over time, I can see, even if they can't always see, that the work you did with your rubbish therapist, often that was really good work that you just didn't enjoy. Not always, you know, some therapists that are not a good match for you, or, you know, the work they did didn't work for you, but quite a lot of work gets written off. But I can certainly see, and I'm sure other therapists can, that it wasn't a waste of time, and that the next therapist or the next person that works with you is building on that foundation. So however long you stay, hopefully you'll get something out of it. You won't always know, but mostly you'll know.
And I know you have sort of experience in psychodynamic, which I know a bit about as well, but for people that don't sort of know about the different types, because obviously that there is a looking back and maybe reflecting on childhood experiences or things we've picked up in our however many years in the world, which is different to if someone was going to go and see a CBT therapist, you know, so it's about picking what you need.
Absolutely. So CBT is you know, sort of recommended for certain things, like it's really good for OCD, and it's pretty good if you're in a crisis mode and you don't have time to unpick stuff. If you need, like, but I mean, for me, and a CBT therapist would probably take issue with me, feel free to write to me and complain, but I see it very much as a kind of a very useful temporary solution. Like if you're bleeding, you'll take whatever, you know, wrap it round and that'll do. So it'll do, but after a while, if you don't sort of take it off, clean it properly, explore it, sew it up, it's going to go bad. I'm not saying CBT makes you go septic, that's not what I mean. But it can be very good for certain things, and it has its limits. All therapies have their limits. Psychodynamic can be too slow for a crisis. Absolutely. Psychodynamic is basically about making the unconscious conscious. That is slow work. It is. And if for somebody who's been suffering and had a lot of bad stuff going on for a long time, they're going to need time in therapy. If you think you have, you know, your childhood and young adulthood, if you've had some difficult experiences, your formative experiences have formed you into a person who is going to struggle with themselves in the world. Why would that take 6 to 8 sessions to fix? In what world is that making sense? If it took you 20, 30 years to get where you are, and you want to roll some of your most important formative experiences back, why would that ever be quick? You're literally trying to kind of unknit and reknit the core parts of your psyche. And so CBT is great for many things. There's parts of CBT, sort of reality checking and stuff, that I definitely use. But on its own, it has its limits, in the same way that, you know, it can be good in a crisis and good if you just need some solid, sort of no nonsense, not advice, but sort of some realistic looking reality testing stuff. Brilliant. But it's probably not going to help you rework your relationship, say, with men, or understand more about your relationship with your gender, or help you come to terms with being ADHD or autistic. It's like everything, it has its limits. And so I guess that's the thing, is to look into it a bit and think, why is this going to be useful for me? How is this going to help me? What do I want from it? And is that something that's realistic for me with this modality?
Because there's so much, isn't there? Because I think, I know I've felt it, and in conversations with other people as well, it's like, oh, well, things aren't that bad and it could be worse, and, you know, I'm not fleeing from a country of war, and you know, it could be, you know, all of this could be worse. What am I moaning about? Why do I feel anxious? All of these sort of things. Or I've not had any capital T trauma in my life and all of that. but there's just so much around us that, as like you said, has kind of infiltrated over the years,
Yeah.
that we're just not even aware of. And actually there's gaining that awareness, and knowing that actually, like, you're not alone. Like, if anyone's watching this, like, you're not alone if you're feeling that things are feeling overwhelming, or just something feels a bit off.
Yeah, but
Like,
it's a problem for you, it's a problem. So I get quite irate with this sort of the suffering comparisons. It's not the suffering Olympics. If people say, oh, like first world problems, yeah, but if you live in the first world, those are your problems. And they may not be, oh, I haven't got any clean water to drink, or oh, my whole family were just bombed to death. Of course, if we had to rank them in order of most serious, then capital T traumas are going to win. You don't have to have big traumas going on in your life to suffer. And you don't have to have, it's not like therapists sit there with a clipboard and they sort of interview and then they go, no, you're fine. What are you doing here, you self-indulgent bitch? Get out. If it's a problem for you, it's a problem. If you're a person that's suffering, and actually I think one of the worst things, some of the worst and most tortured souls are people who come in and they say, my life should be amazing. I have a lovely house, a wonderful partner, beautiful children, a great job, and I'm miserable. I mean, what's worse than that? That the people who are suffering that don't have those things and want them, and at least you can put your finger on your suffering. You can say, this is my problem, this is a problem. But for the people who look like they're having a great life and they feel like they're dying on the inside, that is a problem. It's a legitimate problem. There will be a reason. I'm not really a believer in people overreacting or having silly feelings, like none of that. Because if you feel it, then it's telling you something. And it's not always telling you what you think it's telling you. It's not always like the headline. So, for example, if you think, my partner is cheating because I'm jealous, it's like, well, maybe not. Jealousy can mean all kinds of things. And so it's thinking, okay, this is my jealousy. I own it. I accept it. I'm not going to beat myself up for it. Let's find out why it's there. And there is always a reason for everything that you feel. It's just having the patience and the time and the support to understand what those feelings mean, rather than being too scared to find out. Find out,
Well, it is a bit scary though. It is a bit scary, and to gotta go. And I know there's sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it today. I don't want to do it, or I'll be, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm totally good, and then I'm sobbing in the session. I'm like, where did that come from? Like, you never quite know what's bubbling. Well, I don't quite know what's bubbling, and life still throws you shit every day. So it's not like it's a constant. So it is a journey. And in an ideal world, when people are finished their time in therapy, what are they going to go, like, how are they going to go forward? Like, what are the sort of overarching benefits of investing that time in themselves?
I don't know. I don't know, because often they go and I don't get to see them again. It's hard to know how other people go forward. All I can really say is how I go forward. So I spent a long time in my therapy being really angry because I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. I was working as a trainee counsellor, helping other people feel better and feeling shit. It took a long time. And so that's the thing is, but I went forward now. My life is arguably worse on paper than it was when I started. I've since, been divorced. So I'm not actually properly divorced yet, but getting there, hopefully. And, I've got 3 kids who really struggled in school. So they're homeschooled now. Like, my life is really much more complicated and difficult than it was when I started. Although I don't have little kids, because that is the ultimate hell, in my opinion. But at least they're older now. But even though my life was sort of nominally, I guess, falling apart in that sense, all these disastrous things happening, my capacity to manage, I wake up every day, not necessarily like, woohoo, but my life used to be like grey. Well, I think I was depressed pretty much all my life till I was about 38, 40 something. So my life was like one long, dark corridor with occasional patches of sun that lasted about 3 seconds. And what I noticed, this is another sign that your counselling is going well, is when you suddenly realise the switch and you're like, hang on, my days are mostly sunny, even though bad shit that you talked about is coming at me.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily be blazingly happy, but you notice like a good 75% contentment level. Like, I don't wake up every day thinking, oh God, and can't get out of bed, or I don't want to, and just thinking everything I have to do. I'm like, oh, I used to think I just didn't like, for example, no one particularly loves housework, but it doesn't oppress me the way it used to. I thought it was, I don't like doing this, dishwasher. But actually how I feel about the dishwasher, that's a brilliant barometer for me. How I feel about unloading the dishwasher can really tell me a lot about how I feel in general, how overwhelmed I am, how anxious I am. It has fuck all to do with the dishwasher.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's to do with how I feel in myself. And if I feel resentful about the dishwasher, that often means I need help. I'm overwhelmed, I'm worried. So I guess what you get from it is a sense of, you know yourself, you understand, you're like, oh, I'm diving into Netflix and I'm hardly looking up and I'm snapping at anyone that wants anything from me. I might be overwhelmed. Or, oh, I'm not opening my bills, I think I'm anxious about money. It doesn't, it's not rocket science, but noticing, the capacity to notice what you're doing, understand why you're doing it, not judge yourself or tell yourself off, but actually go accept it and then think, how do I take care of myself in this situation? So you're not just feeling better, but you're able to then stay feeling better. So that even something bad happens, you think, oh, this bad thing is making me feel like this. I know that what I need in this situation is that. I'm going to do this for myself, or ask for help, or get the support that you need. So hopefully you leave feeling better, but also feeling confident that you can manage, that when life throws you down, as it will, that what we've made together in therapy is a lovely, squishy, rubbery internal sense of coping, so that it throws you down, you think it's going to hurt. When I hit the ground, that's going to hurt, but I will bounce. I will not smash into a million smithereens.
Yeah.
So that's it, is the capacity to manage whatever happens. And that's pretty useful. I'm happy. I've spent a lot of money in 10 years of therapy, but it was worth it.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I think when I was thinking, reflecting on my own, I mean, you and other people watching this might be like laughing when I say this, but like mentally, like the mental resilience, like, and things are sort of, they do bounce off more rather than it doesn't hit so hard, and I can pick myself up from stuff better than when I first started. And then also it's that looking, that, I mean, self-love, I mean, there's a bit like, it still feels a bit cringy doing the self-love stuff, but I know you're a big advocate for self-love, and you've got an amazing group as well that like shares loads of inspiring content about that sort of self-love, and it not being necessarily about other people, and just that sort of journey you're on with yourself.
Well, other people have always got an opinion about how you are, who you are, what you're supposed to be according to their needs, how they see you, and how well you gel with their worldview and what they need. And so that's fine, that's unavoidable, that's other people. But the reason why I think it starts with you and how you feel about yourself is that it's fine. Like other people, like for example, as a therapist, there's going to be people that hate me. They're going to meet me and they're just going to think, yeah. There's been even more people that just see my website and go, no thanks, that's not for me. And that's fine. The idea is to kind of be the you-iest you can possibly be.
Yeah.
Just be you. All of it, warts and all, whatever you are, accept it. That doesn't mean you don't want to change or modify anything, but accepting who you are, what you're like, and not despairing over yourself, but actually accepting it. Because then when people do reject you, it's usually for reasons of their own. It's not because you're so awful. It's because you're not going to match. If you think about, if you went to a shoe shop and tried on a bunch of shoes, if shoes could feel, they'd be very sad. You're like, no, but all you're saying is not you are an evil shoe and you must be destroyed, just you don't go with my outfit, actually. That's all it is. And a lot of time when people don't like you, when you think about all the people you've ever not liked, I imagine, unless you've been very unfortunate, that most of those, they just, you wouldn't set them on fire. And if they were on fire, you'd probably put them out, right? Or help them. You don't hate everyone you don't like. You just don't necessarily want to hang. And that's why you don't walk up to them and go, ooh, I hate you. Because it would hurt their feelings, their personal preference. Because people often experience others' rejection as completely demolishing. It's this sense of like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And it's just, no, it's not that. You just don't go with my outfit. And you just kind of think, actually, you don't go with my outfit either. So have a nice life. See you later.
Yeah. Or we tell ourselves like a story that someone or something, or almost put the judgment in our own heads that we'll become expert mind readers, when actually that might not be what anyone else is thinking about us.
Exactly.
I'm always said too much, I shouldn't have said that, all of that.
You project your own insecurities. So the classic story that I hear all the time is someone who'll say like, oh, I saw my friend on the school run, but she just blanked me. blanking on the school run. Like, I feel like I should take this out on a billboard and put it outside schools. I hear it so much. And they'll say, oh, they blanked me, and I think it was because of this thing that I said, or I think it was because of this. I think, give me a long list of things that they think they've probably done wrong. I say, is it that though? Or is it that they're not wearing their contact lenses this morning, or they've run out of the house looking like shit, and they think, if they're doing the ostrich thing, if I don't look at anyone else, no one can see me. Is it that they're thinking so hard about the fight they have with their spouse that they're not looking at you? Are they going over in their mind notes for a meeting? And 9 times out of 10, people say, oh, I saw that person, I asked them. Or they caught up to me later and said, oh, sorry, I just realised after you walked past that I blanked you. We project all of our insecurities and our fears onto silences, you know, or onto sort of an impassive face. Someone that doesn't smile, we immediately go, women have to smile, right? They have to smile all the time.
We're not angry, we're just
no,
being smiley.
Exactly. But a blank-faced or sullen-faced woman will do. It's not just men that want to see a smiling woman. I think we've internalized that misogyny. We want to see. So yeah, try to, and that's the thing, it's noticing when you project, when you're worried, you know, these kinds of things. It's not taking other people's rejections personally.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
Yeah, it's all hard. It's all, if there's a lot of hard stuff, but it is worth it. I certainly, like, I would not have navigated the last year without therapy in my life, and I think it's a benefit not only to me but the people around me as well, and hopefully my children, or it will be when I'm done. But yeah, I mean, if someone is listening today, Ali, and something's a bit off, and you know, it can be bandied around, oh, I'm a bit depressed or I'm a bit anxious or something like, but I'm not bad enough to go and get any help. Do you have any words of advice, like, other than you're not alone, and you're not the only one feeling like that?
You can feel like you're alone. I suppose it's what it feels like that matters. But I mean, I guess if people that say it's not bad enough, I kind of want to ask you, how bad would you like it to get?
Yeah.
Because these things rarely go away on their own. I mean, like, sometimes they do, but you know, if it's really situational, for example, you hate your job, but you found a new one, then getting through your really long 3-month, you know, notice period might make you depressed. And then when you leave, it's reasonable to think, you know what, I'm just gonna crack on and it'll be better. But if you're then 3 months into the new job and you're still feeling that way, you have to think like, oh, I don't know. So sometimes it is situational. So I guess just set yourself a little timeline and say, I'm going to check back in on this set a reminder, an actual reminder on your phone, because you won't do it otherwise. But I mean, really, how bad does it need to get before? So I've heard lots of people say, whether it's talking about their kids or talking about themselves, they say, oh, but she's doing all right for now, I'll see how we go. And I want to go, how bad do you want it to get? Because however bad it is now, unfortunately, these things, unless you do something, it doesn't have to be therapy for me, it's not going to get better on its own. And I think it's kind of wishful thinking. I think we leave a lot of things thinking, oh, it'll be fine, or it'll get better on its own. It's better to do something than to not. And so it doesn't have to be therapy, but what are you going to do? Because no one's going to do it for you. Sadly, we are often bottom of the pile. And so avoiding, your life telescopes when you avoid, because you say, well, I'm not going to go out because I don't feel good about the way that I look. And so then you don't go out, so you don't see your friends. If you don't see your friends, some of them will try and get you out, but eventually you won't see them anymore. They don't hate you, they just know they can't get you out. And so that puts a lot of pressure on your relationship and your kids, and they drive you up the wall because you never get a break. And you're creating, through avoidance, you are avoiding. The reward is, I'm avoiding that anxiety. But then you put a lot of pressure on the relationships you have. So everything you do to kind of step away, counselling is all about not confronting exactly, but sort of facing up to gently with support all the things that you would otherwise welsh out on. Because the temporary relief you get in stepping away, ignoring, turning a blind eye, you get that, but then you really pay for it with interest later when it bites you on the ass. Depression and anxiety, and it'll get you eventually. And it's up to you. If you don't think it's bad enough yet, then I believe you, and I hope that it doesn't have to get too much worse before you get the help that you deserve. You deserve help. We all need it. We're all wired for connection. We get hurt in relationships, and we heal in relationships, and that's why I don't generally give out books, because self-help books are full of a lot of gold, but it's relationships that heal. It's relationships that heal, and that's what we need, is a person, whoever that is for you, a therapist, a friend. Yeah,
it is, and someone you can someone impartial, someone that, you know, because you can talk to friends and family, but actually, yeah, having that person with no judgment. Sorry,
yeah,
voice
who's legally obliged not to tell anyone.
Yeah. That's helpful.
It's not gonna be like you tell your friend and they tell their husband, but he won't tell anyone, and then he tells someone else's husband, and before you know it, everyone knows.
The whole school knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If people want to work with you, they've watched this, Ali, or they want to connect more with the things that you share, can you let people know like about your group and the way, and if you haven't got space, like do you have people, like do you refer on to other people? And
oh yeah, all counsellors have people that
okay.
they can refer on to. I have some spaces at the moment. It's always around the summertime, people start going on holiday and they're like, oh, I think I'm just done now. Yeah, they come back in September, like, oh, I'm done now. I have some spaces, not loads, but yeah. So I've got the Facebook group that you mentioned, which is the mental health space for mums, and that's just.
I'll add in all the links when I put this out there.
Yeah, and then my website kind of lays out all the different ways you can work with me. So that's aliharristherapy.com. That's kind of easy. And all you do there is you click the button that says have a chat, and then you fill in a form, and the form, you fill it in as much or as little as you like. And then that gives me your contact details, which I can come back to. It gives you the opportunity to say, a little bit, if you want to, about why you're coming, what you're hoping for, what you're interested in. And then you can put in your availability, and then we find a time and just have a little Zoom chat like we're doing now.
Yeah.
And then just go from there, really. But there's no terrible hard sell. I'm very much, I always say to people, you're like the butterfly that lands on my hand. Yeah, I'm not going to try and like trick you or
you've got to
stuff down. Very much, and neither am I going to flick you away. The idea is that you can land. You want support, I'm supporto gal, that's me. But you're not obliged, and if it's not right, you deserve a therapeutic relationship that's right. And if that's not with me, then Godspeed, find the right person for you. You deserve that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've really enjoyed chatting, Ali. Have I missed anything? Is there anything else we were going to cover?
I don't think so. Well, if people have got questions,
come to exactly. And if anyone's got any burning questions or challenges, maybe we can come back again and do something if there's anything that's like popular themes, because I don't think many of us haven't got our shit together, so it's like we're all on the journey, aren't we? I guess.
I think so. And I mean, it's not like therapists are like some sort of terrible guru or Buddha. Hopefully we have a bit more self-knowledge, but that doesn't mean that we're like perfect parents, perfect spouses, and hello, getting divorced. So that's capacity to manage. I think that's what counselling hopefully can give you, the capacity to manage, because life will always tip your boat up, capsize you from time to time. It's first thing they teach you in a canoe is that they roll you over. What are you like in an emergency? And that's what we work on.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ali. I've really enjoyed our chat, and thank you for your time, and thank you for everyone that's listening or watching, and I'll put all Ali's links in, and we'll catch up with you all soon. Okay, bye.